The next speaker is a representative for the Australian Private Midwives Association. She's obviously also a private midwife, Tanya McGregor. Round of applause for Tanya.
I'm going to be really short and sweet. In the 60s and 70s we burnt our bras. We had men having they were all members of Parliament. You'd hardly find a woman there. Now we have women, and we're actually in a worse position than we were then. Women need a choice to birth wherever they want to, whether that, obviously, I'm passionate about home birth and wouldn't recommend anyone birth anywhere else, but women need to have a choice wherever they would like to birth. Went to the most beautiful home birth yesterday, had to drive 2 hours there because that woman cannot find a midwife closer to her. And it was wonderful. All women need that option. Thanks.
Well, she seems to be very articulate. Thanks very much, Tanya. Our next speaker is a mother. She had a planned home birth which required an induction, and the midwife supported her in hospital once again. It's Beryl Wong. Sorry, Beryl.
Thank you. I won't stand on the podium because it's my son's nap time, so he's happily snuggled in. So multitasking. When my husband and I chose to hire a private midwife, Jane Palmer, to support us in the birth of our first son, we had no idea how life-changing our decision was and how important this would be in affecting my son's life. And I'll explain why. We first chose to go to a birth centre, and then through all the education we decided that our best chances of a drug-free intervention was to go for a home birth. But what we ended up at was an induction in hospital in a labour ward with a high-risk baby. And don't get me wrong, it was probably one of the best experiences and most empowering experiences of my life. For 36 weeks, everything went swimmingly. I had the perfect pregnancy. Everything was on track. Jane would come to our house in between all the travel I had to do in my corporate role. She gave excellent prenatal care, constantly monitoring the baby. Everything was fine. She was on 24 hours on call whenever I had the slightest question. At 36 weeks, everything went pear-shaped for us. Jane detected something wrong. Bob hadn't grown since the last time she checked. My blood pressure had gone through the roof. There were other indicators that got her extremely worried. She then convinced us that we should go and have a scan in hospital and check things out. And I was hooked up. She even went and personally called up a head paediatrician at RPA to make sure that they took my story seriously and gave me first priority in doing these tests. She had ensured I was booked in from the beginning in hospital so that there was a safety net. So RPA knew about us and we were booked into the system. My midwife was professional and medically responsible. Through her experience, she could see that home birth was no longer on the agenda, and she helped us emotionally to prepare, but also, most importantly, she helped us negotiate the system, the hospital system. And at all times, she had my baby and my health and welfare at the top of her priority list. She knew that with what was going to be a sub-2-kilo baby, that he would go into neonatal intensive care, which he did as soon as he was born. She knew that the induction process was going to be potentially extremely risky for his health. And she also knew that my husband and I were so passionate about having a drug-free baby. And it was even more important now that we knew that he was so little that drugs could severely compromise him in the birth process. And you know what? We did it. It was this harrowing time. Jane held our hands. She negotiated the system. We took an amazing amount. We really pushed the system to give me as much time as possible. Lots of induction gels to do the work, and she even stopped an over-eager registrar from giving me an episiotomy while I was pushing the baby. She said calmly, "Hold on, she'll have her baby in the next push." And I did. No tearing. And no drugs. So while the prenatal and birth support was excellent, the postnatal care is what I'm really here to tell you about. She was really worth 10 times the fee I paid in this period, and I don't say this lightly. We had a 1.8 kilo baby who was too weak to suck. He couldn't get my milk supply going. He had other health issues. Jane then put in this strategic lactation plan that changed every 3 or 4 days. It was this amazingly complex plan that involved him sucking on the breast, me expressing, getting donor milk from my cousin. It was just amazing. She stuck with us through 3 months, and we finally got the milk going, and he's breastfeeding to today. Now, why is this important? It's important because 6 months later, we found out from the doctors that our baby had a rare medical condition. This condition meant that most of these babies cannot breastfeed, and as a result, well-meaning health professionals put them on formula, which affect their gut and cause all sorts of problems. They then go into food refusal. So when you open the textbook on his medical condition, these kids don't eat. For the rest of their lives, they go onto a gastric tube to be fed through their stomach. They then have all these gastrointestinal problems, and because they haven't exercised their mouth to eat, they then have speech delay, and for the rest of their lives, they're always behind. Now, my son has got growth and development issues, but he eats, and that is really important to us. When we open the textbook, our son doesn't have any of those issues, and I think it comes back, and I really believe, have no doubt, comes back to the fact that our midwife stuck with us. She stuck with Aiden and didn't give up, not like those other babies with his medical condition. We were extremely lucky. Our midwife fee was paid 100% by UK medical plan because we had just come from overseas as an expat. So there were no questions asked, no conditions, if buts and maybes, and we'll withdraw our support if you decide to have your birth somewhere else, blah, blah, blah. We didn't have any of that. And so for the next birth, I want to have the same rights to choose a home birth if we want to, and we do want to. And so, yeah.
If we could just make sure that everyone's on the footpath off the road, completely away from the road, that would be great, and would assist the fine men and women of the constabulary. I apologise.
And it really angers me that governments and people who don't support women's rights and women's decisions are coming in to make these decisions on behalf. So I'm here to stand up for people, for the women, for myself, for the future, because I've heard that one of the conditions for having a home birth with the doctors would be, you know, there's this long list, but one of them would be that you can't have it if your baby's been in an intensive care unit at birth. Now that would rule us out, and our doctors have already said that he's got a rare medical condition that will not repeat itself in the next pregnancy. So I ask myself, who are these people making these decisions? We know the best about our body and our babies, so please give us that right. Thank you.
Great,